Alright, so unfortunately I cannot show my face because I have tried so many times to screen record and get an audio, but for some reason technology hates me and I cannot figure it out, and my 24-hour grace period is slowly coming to an end. So I am sorry, this is a little bit ratchet, but the presentation is really pretty, so I hope you enjoy. My presentation for my midterm project is on the Seveso, Italy disaster. On Saturday, July 10th, 1976, ICM ESA's trichlorophenol reactor overheated due to small missteps made when shutting down operations for the weekend. This resulted in a major pressure buildup that would later release in a massive amount of highly carcinogenic chemical 2378 tetrachlorodibenzo, or dioxin, in a large cloud. Strong winds carried this cloud into a small town of Seveso, Italy, where thousands of residents were exposed to the toxic chemical. This disaster is marked as one of the greatest known incidents where dioxin was released into the atmosphere, as well as the greatest exposure to humans and animals alike. The effects on environment, flora, and fauna. The environmental effects were that dust was considered toxic in the air, the ingestion of toxic food caused major symptoms and was warned against, vehicle speed was limited, and no procreation was limited or was warned against. The effects on flora were that there was a high plant mortality, meaning many plants were killed off or died as a result of exposure to dioxin. Fruits, herbs, flowers, and vegetables grown in gardens were affected and subsequently removed. There was also high levels of dioxin in soil samples. The effects on fauna were similar. There was a high animal mortality rate. Toxicity of cattle, chickens, and other animals used for consumption resulted in the slaughter of 80,000 animals. Animals such as pets were also encouraged to be killed. Toxins released. High levels of 2378 tetrachlorodibenzo p-dioxin, also known as TCDD, were released. It is a potent endocrine disruptor, highly lipophilic, and extremely stable with a long half-life in humans of 7 to 9 years. A runaway chemical reaction resulted in the release of an aerosol cloud that included sodium hydroxide, ethylene glycol, sodium trichlorophonate, an estimated 15 to 30 kilograms of TCDD over an 18-kilometer area. Bioaccumulation and magnification. The first exposure was the air and soil, as well as the water. Dioxin was released in a cloud, floating to inhabited areas and infecting the surrounding atmosphere, water, and soil. Next was the plant exposure. The toxicity in the soil and atmosphere then infected the plants. Through photosynthesis and the nutrients of the soil, dioxin was introduced to plants. Additionally, runoff from nearby areas of water affected the plants. Animal exposure followed. When animals were exposed to the atmosphere, the water, and the plants they have eaten that was already infected with dioxin, they were soon infected as well. Lastly is human exposure. Humans were breathing in the toxic air as well as eating the intoxicated plants and animals. This was soon prohibited by government officials, calling for the killing off of plants and animals that could have been infected. Risk communication. There was a major gap in the health management, preparation, and safety execution of Italy's government for this accident. During the accident, precautions were taken against consumption of plants and animals exposed to the chemical, procreation, driving above certain speeds as to not stir up dust, and interaction with others. Maintaining the cleanliness of skin was the priority. The European Community issued a general directive in 1982 that required every chemical company to provide full information on hazardous sites, emergency plans, storage of dangerous substances, accidental release scenarios, ensured the public be informed about potential risks and protective actions necessary to take during an emergency. This resulted in an increased effort to communicate the risks of hazardous facilities to the community. Disaster remediation and payment. The cleanup of Seveso was of massive proportions. 35 families were relocated and rehoused, as well as businesses. Hundreds of homes were demolished or decontaminated. Soil and vegetation were removed from gardens and thousands of trees were replanted. 80,000 animals were killed to revitalize the food chain. The remaining debris was packed into 2 large tunnels, which 6 years later were finally filled. The plant was sealed and dismantled, and the most heavily contaminated waste was packed into 41 lead-lined barrels and removed from the site. The owners of the company that ran the factory, Swiss multinational Roche, paid up to $168 million in damages and in recovery. In conclusion, the Seveso, Italy disaster was undoubtedly one of the most unfortunate and avoidable disasters of all time. If safety regulations were correctly followed, this accident may have never happened, preventing illness in hundreds of people and saving the lives of thousands of animals. Environmental justice was eventually reached as Seveso was cleaned up and the government established better directives for potential accidents in the future. Roche was made to pay for damages of the environment and citizens of Seveso. These are my citations. Thank you very much.